So out of all the things that I've done so far, this has been the most requested video series. So it's about time to get back on this thing. Here we go. Low Budget Buggy, episode 2. So if you guys watched episode 1 of this series, I talked about how I'm gonna build a super budget buggy using Cherokee drivetrain. I had an old Cherokee that was just super beat up and wanted to do a budget buggy using my production chassis and kind of prove that the 4-liter, the AX15, and I was gonna do the 231 transfer case, but ended up switching to a Dana 300 just because I want to have twin sticks, be able to do front dig. Kind of just wanted to prove that that fit. Ended up changing my mind and doing the manual. Ended up going to an AW4 just for resale purposes. And I think wheeling a manual buggy is cool, but probably somebody else is just gonna want automatic. So that's what we're doing. So let's check out where we're at. So this is where we're at right now. I built the chassis right before the Off-Road Expo a couple weeks ago. And since then, just got the motor mocked up in there. Got the axles mocked up at the wheelbase, trying to figure out shock packaging and all that. But I think we're gonna end up setting this up at 115. That's kind of gonna be the sweet spot of where it's gonna work out for everything, shock packaging wise. The biggest kind of struggle that's gonna be in this car is the packaging of the radiator up front, since we are running a bench seat in the rear or just a third seat back there. We're not gonna put the radiator in the back of the car. It's gonna have to go up front. So I'm gonna have to figure out packaging of that. The radiator can only go pretty much to this tube and kick back at a slight angle. We're gonna have to see once we get the fan in there, accessories on here and everything, how far we can tilt it back and how tall of a radiator we can get. So far I've been looking at the CBR 22 by 13 radiator. That seems to be the smallest radiator I can find. Hopefully, it's kind of going to be one of those things. This is kind of a weird setup that not a lot of people do with these motors. So I'm going to just have to figure out if radiator that small is going to cool this. I've tried reading on some of the forums and stuff, aftermarket radiators that people are running, but obviously normally people are doing these in either a TJ or a Cherokee that they have a lot bigger space that they can package, so nobody's really going this small on a radiator, so we're gonna have to just kind of find out. But as for the motor clearance, other than it sticking up really far in the chassis compared to the V6 that is normally in here, and even the V8s is only on an LS, the accessories is all the way back here. So this block is quite a bit longer, but packaging wise, it's actually not too bad. I have it offset to the passenger side about an inch or so right now. Just trying to get a visual of everything. I want to have obviously good visibility over here. I am gonna have to package the brake booster off of the Cherokee. I'm gonna use the stock brake booster just because I plan on, since we're on a budget, I'm gonna do the stock Super Duty calipers and rotors. As for the axles, I would like to have an 05 and up Super Duty, but this is what I had, so this is what I'm gonna use. It's a 99 to 04 Dana 60 and a Sterling 10.5 in the rear. The plan is to do just stock shafts, keep it on a budget. I haven't decided if I want to do a Detroit up front, because I know a spool just sucks for steering, but I need to keep it as cheap as possible. So for sure doing a spool in the rear, possibly spool or Detroit in the front. This thing is going on 40s. Got a set of 40-inch Mickey Thompson stickies on Raceline wheels. So far I'm pretty happy with interior cab space with this motor in here. Obviously everything's running out the driver's side pretty much. There's not a whole lot on the passenger side, so that's going to allow us to do a nice thin console. That way we have maximum visibility out the passenger side over here. AW4 fits in there nice, and then we're running a Dana 300 that's flipped. So obviously this is just an empty case that's in there for mock-up. I got the flip adapter or clocking ring from Novak, and then got a new input shaft for the Dana 300 because this is an older AW4. It's 21 spline, so I'm gonna have to go to a 21 spline on the Dana 300, and then ordered the Behemoth flip kit. I was a little sad to see that this adapter only has 2 positions to clock the transfer case at. It's pretty much the location it's at right now, or one that's way down from there. So this is the one I'm gonna end up running, but it's not too big of a deal because the flip kit's gonna stick up off of the transfer case at least 1.5 inches or so with the shifters on top up there. So having it clocked down is probably gonna work out for us in our favor. That way we can clear the seat and everything. And then as far as the subframe goes, the Dana 300 is still above the height that's going to be the skid plate down here. So even though it does clock down a little bit and sit below those tubes, not really below, but more in line with those tubes, it's still going to work out as far as our skid plate. The oil pan on the transmission is really in line with the top of the tube. Got good clearance on the bell housing there. And then again, the engine oil pan is still above the height that's going to be the skid plate that's going to come forward, probably break up. As for exhaust, I'm going to have to find a new 88 to I think 90 is the Renix Motors exhaust manifold, because this one's all booger welded, cracked in a bunch of places, and I just want to get a new one in there. And I'll have the exhaust come down, wrap around the front, have the skid cover the exhaust right there, and then wrap around, run down the passenger side, because we'll have a lot more room. Up here we're gonna have our mid shaft that's gonna come up to this point with the carrier bearing, and then front drive shaft from the carrier bearing going forward. So packaging of exhaust will just be a lot easier to wrap around the front and then shoot out the back on this side. Like I said, this is the same chassis as my production 3-seat chassis that we're running, the 3.9 V6 LS's. One guy that bought a chassis is running an Ecotech in it. So I mean, lots of drivetrain packages fit in this chassis, so I was kind of happy to see this one fit in here as well for somebody that wants to do just more of a budget Cherokee or TJ drivetrain swap into one of these. It does fit pretty nicely. And then I am 6'5", and I fit very comfortably in here with how these seats are. This harness bar setup is the +2 bent back harness bar. I offer this chassis in a straight harness bar or this bent back setup. It really just gives you about 2 more inches of seat room. For low back seats, it's not really too bad because you can drop the seat down a little more and tuck the back of the seat almost under the harness tube if it was straight. But really the bent back harness bar helps out when you're running high back seats with a headrest to be able to kick the angle of the seat back and clear that headrest back here. I originally designed this car to have a single rear seat in the back, but after having a lot of people ask if they could run a bench seat in the rear, I kind of changed my mind and decided to mock it up with a bench seat in the rear. That way I could show that one does fit. This is a 36-inch Corbeau seat. 36-inch PRP is probably going to fit similar in there. Really the only difference from how I do packaging of everything versus the 3-seat is the 3-seat would have a tube that comes across here and then back, and then has the harness bar that goes straight across right here, and the shock is like packaged in between the two tubes right here. So the difference here is obviously we have a seat that comes all the way over here. So how I'm going to package the shock in this setup is it's going to come straight up off the axle and be up here in the back behind the seat, and then it'll have a harness bar that comes up and over up at this height somewhere up here. The other kind of difference with this is I got a good deal from my buddy on a set of air shocks. They're ADS air shocks. He's got 16s for the front and 18s for the rear. So normally on a 3-seat car, I would run 16s front and rear, but since we have the 18s, we're gonna use them. So our shock's gonna stick up quite a bit up here, but that's not really a big deal because the height of the bench seat is up quite a bit. So the shock being up at the harness bar isn't really an issue. So shock packaging kind of brings me to the point of why I'm setting it up at 115. I'd say you could set this car up a lot shorter, but just as far as the bench seat goes, this is kind of the only place that the rear axle can go at. You could definitely go longer and put the shock lower on the axle and have it back, but since we're in line with this point and the shock's going to be right here, the shock's basically going to be straight up and down at 90 this way, and then kicked in this way, probably at 15 to 20 degrees or so. And then as far as the front, this is pretty much where the front can land. We're going to have the radiator that's sloped back at an angle, and the shock is going to have to be right behind basically where that face of the radiator is. So we're going to run the shock from this point down to the back side of the axle right here. So next thing we're going to do is going to be doing motor mounts and the transmission mount. That way our motor's set, that's where it's going to go, it's not going to move. And then we'll start working on link mounts, cutting the casting back on the axle. That way we could package a link mount here and then do a truss like bridge that goes over the top to mount our upper links on each side. Since we are on a budget with this, I'm going to do all the truss, all the link mounts and everything in-house. I'm not going to buy any kit or anything. The only thing I did end up buying is I bought the Jesse Haynes weld-on high steer arms for the 99 to 04, so that our steering geometry and everything is set for us. That would take some time to come up with brackets for that, so that's just easy. Those are like 190 bucks or whatever. Just went ahead and bought those, so we'll get those welded on. We'll do our own ram mount and everything. The last Super Duty axle I did was a 05 and up, and I bought the TMR ram mount, and by the time it was all said and done, I was kicking myself because I had cut half of the thing off, and it would have probably just been easier to design my own. So other than that, that's kind of where we're at right now. Last time you guys saw the shop, I was just getting some stuff in here, so a little shop update. We got the plasma table over there in the corner. It's really quickly filling up with storage crap parts and everything, so but I've got another car showing up next week, so pretty much got room for a little grinding fab area. I need to get these tires out of here, but have a little grinding fab area over here. Car here. I've got another car showing up next week. That's why I cleared this area out, and then the lift spot. And as for the home shop, it is an absolute mess. I got everything moved over to the new shop and haven't had a chance. I've been spending every day down at the shop, so I haven't had a chance to clean up in here. So I'll get around to it eventually. But like I talked about, the Dragon is staying here because I'm gonna do chassis, at least cutting and bending and packaging and everything here. And then when it comes to a full vehicle build or whatever, we'll do it down at the shop. So still gonna utilize the space here. I just need to get it all cleaned up and ready to start working here again. Having a shop is super cool, but man, I hate driving to work again. It absolutely sucks. Right now there's construction in like 3 places down the main road to the shop. So it takes maybe a 20-minute drive to the shop and makes it like 45 minutes to an hour. So that's fun. But you know, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. My plan, hopefully in the next couple years, my wife and I want to move out of California and get some property somewhere, build a shop at the house again, and be working from home again, because man, it is nice working from home. But I'm super excited to be back on the low budget Cherokee buggy. Really just been putting it off because I've been so busy with other projects, but at least knocking the chassis out is really forcing me to get back on it and work on it. So I'm excited. I know you guys been asking a lot about it, so thanks for watching this update. Keep it classy, and I'll see you guys next time.